Zhu Ling was born on November 24, 1973, in Beijing, China to an intellectual family. Her father was a senior engineer at the National Seismological Bureau of China, and she had an older sister, who was a biology student at Peking University. Her parents both met in 1959 while studying in the Department of Geophysics at the University of Science and Technology of China. Tragically, her sister disappeared in April 1989 after falling off a cliff while on a spring excursion to Nansanpo with classmates. Her remains were found 3 days later and her death was ruled accidental. Zhu was admitted to Tsinghua University in 1992 and majored in physical chemistry. She was described as a bright student and very versatile, as along with her chemistry knowledge she knew how to play musical instruments and was also on the swim team. Starting in October 1994, Zhu twice began to suffer from temporary blindness and blurred vision in both of her eyes for several days and underwent eye examinations at both the University Hospital and Peking Medical College, both of which didn't look for the cause of her eye problems and just treated the issue. On November 24, 1994, Zhu started to suffer from more severe symptoms. At first, she had severe stomach pain and couldn't eat. On December 5th, her stomach comfort only got worse. By December 8th, her hair began to fall off, and on December 23rd, she was finally admitted to a hospital. Upon examination, the doctors found that her arsenic and mercury levels were normal, and so were her imaging and endocrine examinations were also normal, but her nail folds showed severe microcirculatory abnormalities. While in the hospital, she was treated with nutritional support and traditional Chinese medicine, and this worked as her symptoms went into remission and her hair started to grow back. The doctors could not find a cause for her condition, but she was discharged from the hospital on January 23, 1995, in good health. On February 20, 1995, Zhu returned to the university after winter break ended and started her new semester. She wouldn't get far in her studies, as on February 27, she began to develop severe pain in her legs. On March 8, the pain returned to worse than before, as she was suffering from severe leg, foot, and calf pain. It was so bad that Zhu tried her hardest not to touch anything, but the pain only worsened and now included her waist. On March 9, she was brought to a special neurology clinic at the Union Hospital, where the doctor stated that her symptoms were likely thallium poisoning. When she was admitted, she was able to speak clearly, but her hair had begun falling out again, and touching her on any of her extremities would cause immense pain. Her fingertips and soles were a red color. She had a high temperature, decreased tactile sensation below the fingertips and knees, symmetrical knee reflexes, low ankle reflexes, and obvious Mies lines on her fingernails. Since Zhu had no prior documented experience with thallium poisoning and the hospital was unable to conduct any tests, no tests were performed to confirm this diagnosis, and instead just focused on the treatment. On March 15th, she was admitted to the neurology ward of the Union Hospital, now suffering from alopecia, abdominal pain, joint and muscle pain, bilateral lower limbs distal pain, vertigo, and abdominal. Before they could try and diagnose the source of her new symptoms, they rapidly got worse, as she now started to suffer from chest pain, distorted facial muscles, slurred speech, choking on water, and respiratory distress. The doctors tried many different techniques for treatment, including antibiotics, antivirals, corticosteroids, immunosuppressants, and albumin injections. On March 20th, Zhu fell into a coma. On March 23rd, Zhu began to suffer from central respiratory failure and was given a tracheotomy. On March 24th, they began treating her with plasma replacement therapy, and by April 18th, she has given the treatment a total of 7 times, each time at 1,400 to 2,000 milliliters, amounting to a total of 10,000 milliliters of plasma, which played an important part in keeping Zhu alive, although she contracted hepatitis C during the treatments. On March 28, she suffered from a complication of left-sided pneumothorax and was admitted to an ICU unit and placed on a ventilator. On April 10, her classmates sought help via the internet by recording, writing down, and documenting all of her symptoms, and then translating them into English and emailing them out to various sources, hospitals, newspapers, and websites abroad. This was seen by many, most notably a doctor working at a Chinese embassy in the US and a Chinese doctor living in California. The email got 2,000 replies from 18 different countries, and various foreign doctors contacted the hospital and gave the diagnosis of thallium poisoning. The hospital, however, rejected their advice and diagnosis. On April 28, Zhu's family obtained urine, cerebrospinal fluid, blood, fingernails, and hair in secret with a doctor from the hospital sympathetic to their plight and sent them to the Beijing Institute of Labor Health and Occupational Disease Prevention and Control for testing. The results showed that she had suffered from a dose thousands of times greater than the normal limit for healthy people and that it had happened twice. They ruled that with such a high dose she was likely poisoned intentionally. After the diagnosis was confirmed, the hospital was forced to relent and foreign doctors from around the world went to the hospital to take part in her treatment. After the thallium poisoning diagnosis was confirmed, Zhu started being treated with Prussian blue. On May 9, Zhu's platelets dropped to 40,000/mm3 and hemodialysis had to be stopped. Her thrombocytopenia only improved after a blood transfusion. On May 11, Zhu began to suffer from diarrhea and blue sweat. On May 16, her hemodialysis treatment resumed. On May 22, hemodialysis treatment was halted completely and the doctors only used Prussian blue. On May 23, her facial expressions despite her coma started to change in reaction to foreign stimuli, indicating that she may be slowly starting to wake up. Zhu woke from her coma on August 31, 1995, however, her central and peripheral nervous systems were severely damaged due to the duration of her coma and the poisoning. At first, she could speak only a little and was able to recall memories from earlier in her life, but her arms and muscles were still weak. The damage, however, was much more severe as she later became nearly blind, could not speak, could barely care for herself, and had the IQ and mental state of a 6-year-old. She was discharged from the hospital in November 1995. To this day, her faculties have never been restored and she requires constant care from her parents and relatives. During Zhu's treatment, her case would be reported to the police on May 5 as she had no prior experience with thallium, and the high levels indicated that she had been deliberately poisoned and that it was likely criminal in nature. The police went to search Zhu's dorm and were told that at some point between April 28 and May 7, there had been a robbery, and several of Zhu's personal belongings like her contact lens cases, lipstick, shampoo, bath soap, and water glasses had all been stolen. The police compiled a list and found that in Beijing only 20 units needed thallium for their work, and only 200 people had access to thallium, so therefore the suspect list would be quite small. The police visited every single unit in the city and interviewed 130 people at the university who Zhu consistently interacted with. Eventually, the police singled out a woman named Sun Wei as their main suspect. Sun Wei was born on August 20, 1973, and was a classmate of Zhu and one of her 3 dorm mates. Despite her getting along well with Zhu by all accounts, she was the police's only suspect based solely on the fact that she had official access and permission to have thallium, when all of the other students didn't, and university staff heavily talked up their security and how no one without permission could steal any. The police took no action against Sun due to a lack of evidence. On January 1, 1997, Chinese law was amended and it gave the police the power to summon suspects for interrogation without actually arresting or detaining them, and that they could question them for 12 hours. The police took advantage of this, and on April 2 they issued a summons to Sunday. The police questioned Sun for 8 hours straight and made her sign a document where she would acknowledge that she was a suspect. After those 8 hours passed, Sun was never questioned again since her family showed up to bring her home. Sun's family consisted of her father Sun Yueqi, who was an important member of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, as a senior leader of the Revolutionary Committee of the Chinese Kuomintang, and her first cousin was once the deputy mayor of Beijing. Many suspects that these connections were used to remove Sun from suspicion. However, the police deny this and continue to claim that Sun is the main suspect in the case, especially since the family only showed up right after the police confronted her with the fact that she checked out books about thallium before the poisoning. On August 25, 1998, the police closed the case and labeled it as unsolved. Sun would comment on the case in 2005, explaining online that the police cleared her of any suspicion and that she was innocent and had no motive to poison Zhu. In 2013, she added that she wanted the real culprit to be found. Sunway changed her name to Sun Shiyan, changed her legal date of birth, married an American man, acquired a green card, and moved to the United States. A White House petition to get Sun deported or arrested was started in 2013 and gained 143,000 signatures, but nothing came of it. Sunway's former classmates also stated that Sun did have a motive, as Zhu recently defeated her at a student election, and that Sun was rude in general. In 2013, new suspects would emerge as Wang Yifeng, one of Zhu's old classmates, would drop a very important piece of evidence. Sun was not the only one with access to thallium. Although Wang still pointed to Sun as the main and most likely suspect, she still revealed that there may be others. The thallium solution used to help teachers do experiments was already prepared by other students on a table. And it was due to this that 7 had access to thallium as opposed to just 1. 2 teachers, Li Longdi and Tong Aijuan, 3 female graduate students named Chan, Zhao, and Zhu, 2 undergraduate students, a male named Wu, and Sunway herself, and students in general were free to enter experiments if one was happening. On September 26, 2013, Zhu's family received a mysterious letter, and this letter further opened the door to the possibility of more suspects. Zhu's family received a letter signed on May 31st and mailed on June 4th. The letter was written in Los Angeles and mailed to her family in China from Las Vegas. The anonymous sender of this letter alleged that Zhu was a bully and that all of her roommates and classmates collectively poisoned Zhu together, as revenge for 2 years' worth of intentional sleep deprivation. The full text of the letter is as follows. To Zhu Lin's parents. Recently, the community has been speculating about your daughter again. As a person who knows a little, I always feel that your daughter is at fault first. If she hadn't made noise, disturbed other people's rest, hurt people, discriminated against foreigners, and other annoying vices, she would not have been poisoned and maimed collectively by her fellow dormitory members. The main thing in life is karma. One's evil cause bears the evil fruit today. She had been affecting the sleep of others for more than 2 years. The dormitory was in a state of semi-collapse and could not tolerate it any longer. They only wanted to expel her from the dormitory, to send her to detention. She was poisoned, purely by accident. In their own words, if this continues, we will all get a nervous breakdown. In addition, there was a case here in Los Angeles. A man, because of the neighbors creating a variety of noise that he could not sleep, repeatedly protested to each other to no avail, so, with a gun he killed them. The court sentenced him not guilty, not a day in jail. If your daughter's case was in the US and it ended up in court, these people who poisoned her would likely have escaped justice as well. With enough justification, they can get away with it. To sum up, everything has a cause and a consequence. Your daughter is wrong in the first. They repeatedly complained to the dormitory management, and Tsinghua University did not act wrong in the second. The few people who poisoned N times, N programs, before the next step, is wrong in the second. All 3 parties are at fault. If they wanted to harm your daughter, the first time you can poison her. Because the first time was ineffective, the second time only increased the measurement. The result is unexpected, and this is not the result they wanted. They just wanted to make your daughter sick and repeat the year so they could sleep well for 2 years. The people involved in handling the case back then, including the management of Tsinghua University and the vice chairman of the CPPCC, all advocated downplaying the situation, not wanting to look deeper, and not wanting to ruin the future of the other 3 people because of your daughter's fault, and anyway, no one was killed. Now it's a few years later, everyone is living in peace and quiet. I suggest that you do your daughter a favor and let these 3 people who almost got a nervous breakdown because of your daughter live well. If the whole world knows that your daughter is a public nuisance in the dormitory, will you and your wife have shame? I just hope that in the next life, you don't have children who are selfish, don't get along, don't care about other people's feelings, and have no sense of public morality. The internet describes how good your daughter is, but I don't see how good she is. A person who does what she wants, who speaks badly, who doesn't care about other people's feelings, who affects other people's sleep for a long time, has nothing to do with excellence. I am a district student, honor student, and longtime student leader. I cannot understand your daughter's behavior and have never met such people. Everything in life is cause and effect, and one's blessings and disasters depend on the causes one plants, i.e., good causes and good consequences, and bad causes and bad consequences. If your daughter had kept her rest time, not bothered others, respected her classmates, and had good relations with her dorm mates, how would she have had such a miserable fate today? Your daughter has failed so much as a human being that she has ended up in this situation. If there is an afterlife, you and your wife should first teach your daughter how to behave, how to respect people, how to get along with people, treat people generously, do public service, and become a person who can contribute to the country and even the nation. That is true excellence. Monterey Park, Los Angeles, USA. May 31st, 2013 inch. No official or formal response to the letter was made by Zhu's family. The letter was handed over to the police, who were unable to find the anonymous writer. The only thing known about the letter aside from its contents, date, and where it was written and mailed from is that it was written on A4 paper, which is not very common in the United States. Regrettably, the trial mostly goes cold from this point. Zhu is still alive and will turn 50 this year, although her condition hasn't improved since her discharge from the hospital in 1995. And as for the poisoner? Despite the case being open for and investigated for 4 years before being shelved and the revelation that there may be other suspects, the police only ever looked into Sun and didn't consider other suspects. Is Sun guilty? Was she just scapegoated? Or is the letter accurate and Sun may have just been one of the many dorm mates who took part? The answer will likely never be known. Although the poisoner escaped justice, Zhu's family still got some compensation. In December 1999, a lawyer named Yu Rong represented Zhu's family free of charge and filed a lawsuit against the hospital that treated Zhu. They argued that their misdiagnosis, treatment for the misdiagnosis, refusal to carry out tests for thallium poisoning, refusal to provide test samples for them to conduct their own tests, doubting the test results when they got a test done in secret, and refusal to use Prussian blue for several days. Blood transfusion and hemodialysis caused Zhu's hepatitis C, as well as causing her current condition after waking from her coma. The case was heard by the Beijing No. 2 Intermediate People's Court, and on November 26, 2000, they sided with the family and found the hospital liable and at fault, ordering them to pay 100,000 yuan in compensation.